Hello, guys. Welcome to Rewriting the Narrative. Different intro. I am Meredith Paci, and my co-host who normally introduces us, Sarah Bishop, and we have some pretty cool shit to talk about. We did a webinar, and we got, honestly, not to toot our own horns, but we got some rave reviews and feedback, and it was honestly an amazing effing night. Sarah, how do you feel about it?
I honestly got emotional at the end of it. So that's how good it went. And it wasn't because it was over that I was excited. It was genuine, just gratitude for everybody in the room. And our topic was thyroid and thyroid health. And we went in, I will say, was as some people in the that joined us said at the end, it was the information and education that doctors rarely talk about that is missing in the clinical setting. And I think it really helps connect a lot of dots for a lot of the coaches in the room and the people that were there just, looking to support their own thyroid and metabolic health. So it was really cool. And you were in your element. You had the analogies and the stories ready to rock. Mary, you guys has this whole dialogue, just you tell us about thyroid and what you thought of your section.
Yeah, I hate to say this. I was thinking as you were talking, I was like, I think this was my favorite one, and I don't say that to knock our previous webinars that we did, but I will say this. Thank you for everyone who has just been following along on our growth, because this is a moment where when we got done, I was like, fuck, that was great. And I think that the whole thing is we spoke from our hearts, we spoke from real life experience. It's the analogies, they're real. They are real analogies with real people, because this is stuff that we've heard not just recently, stuff that we've heard for years. And we now, I think what I appreciate the most from how Sarah and I now approach our conversations with other people is, to the point of, our whole title was to the questions that don't get answered with regards to clinical setting. And it was very important for Sarah and I not to shit on providers, because number one, we have had so much experience working with amazing providers, and something we say often is, there's not great humans in every field, but we truthfully believe nobody got in the healthcare field and you sacrifice all these hours to do harm. But we also have been to our fair share of appointments for ourselves and have had real life experience where we also know that a lot of times there's just not the time, and I said this actually in the webinar, perhaps the client, the person, the individual, because I've been that individual where I didn't steer the conversation where it needed to be steered. It just, when they asked me how I was, perhaps I said, oh, I'm doing good, because that's what nice people do, is they, I'm great, and then you start out saying you're great, and then you start telling somebody how not great you are, and that can really skew the conversation, as opposed to walking in prepared for that appointment and having been consistent through things. And I think that's the part that I really appreciated the most, where we came from, is we emphasized not just this symptoms means this, or your provider did you wrong, but we said, hey, these are the experiences we've had. These are the connections with the body, and we want you to learn these things, not to memorize them. You don't need to memorize, like I've said, this enzyme and that enzyme, but I want you to understand what is happening in the body, what's happening to your body, so that you can take this away from either a client perspective or a coaching perspective and start working on those consistent things, and so you can communicate more clearly to a provider to perhaps steer that conversation. Yeah.
Yes. And you said something that really triggered me. And this is for, more so, the clients, that were in the room. And if you're listening to this, being nice. not saying that you have an issue because you want to be nice or you don't want to cause a stir or be annoying.
Yeah.
And this is where I just want to shake women and be like, your providers are here to help you. That is literally their job, right? You're paying them a lot of money, whether it's, out of your paycheck via insurance or out of pocket or swiping your HSA, FSA card. Like, you are paying for them to help you, and they want to help you, but they can't if you don't bring it up. But at the same time, if you have no idea what those signals mean that your body is sending you, or don't, see those connections, or don't have that person to be that maybe bird's eye view to kind of like point things out, well, of course you don't know how to advocate, for yourself, because we weren't taught this, in school. And that's, I think, where you and I are, it's like so passionate, like as coaches, is to just give our clients the confidence to go into those rooms and not tell the doctor what to do, but tell the doctor what they're experiencing or what they're questioning, or making sure that our clients are seeing providers in general. One of the examples that I gave, in regards to, a client or, an individual who is on thyroid medication, but still having thyroid related symptoms, making sure that your clients are having annual appointments with whoever prescribed them their medication in the first place, no matter no matter what type of medication that they're on, whether it's a blend, T3 T4 combo or levothyroxine. Like, we want to make sure that blood work is being done. And I had an example of a client where I was seeing thyroid symptoms, right? She was on levo. And I was like, hey, when's your next appointment with your provider? Because maybe we talk to them, about some of the symptoms you're having, options, etc. And she's like, oh, he told me I never need to see him again.
Yeah. What?
Yeah, girl, you do. But she was told that, right? And, again, it is what it is. And now she's on something that works for her. But just, again, having somebody to be that advocate. And, one thing I brought up as well to the coaches in the room, and why we did go in on the education and we didn't hold back in any way, because women aren't dumb, coaches aren't dumb. We can take the big girl words and the definitions. But, one of the examples I was giving was on reverse T3. And it's very common in the functional health space to say reverse T3 blocks active thyroid hormone, and that's the reason why it's high, and if someone's having issues related to low T3, blah blah blah. But that's actually not correct from a physiological standpoint. I'm not going to get into the deaminases and whatnot, like you said, but you don't have to memorize that. But for coaches, understanding that, hey, it's not a blocking mechanism, it's a converting mechanism, because that language that we use with our clients really does matter, because you want your client to go into the room with their provider with the right language to use, so that the doctor doesn't think that they're just talking to Dr. Google or Dr. Instagram, and again, kind of get that sour taste in their mouth that you might as well, as a coach, if somebody brings up, hey, I saw so-and-so promoting green shake cleanse, I you would roll your eyes too, right? So I think that's also where, for no matter where you are, we feel that education does matter.
Yeah. I love that you said competency, because I think that literary competency, that is what separates, in truth, the coaches that we mentor, and how we mentor coaches to work with their clients. That's coaching. That is empowering somebody. That is helping somebody rise up. The other parts kind of the webinar that I really like too is speaking of the Instagram language, etc. is it's really popular on social media, and that's what social media is for. It's very these quick bursts. And I think that, again, people, when they're scrolling, it feeds to that, meaning they see this, one Instagram reel for a couple of seconds that is, to your point, advertising, a fear thing to get your attention about, fatigue equals this, or, this blocks that, and you need to take this to unblock it. And this is where we also see so many people not really digging into understanding mechanisms and what's happening in the body. And perhaps, to your point, one of the examples I gave was, even taking medication over the counter, and maybe they don't even need it, right? But because perhaps somebody has fatigue, that's something we talked about too in the webinar, is looking at symptoms. And we can't just say that fatigue means you have low thyroid. One of the slides I showed there, it was specifically for women, reproductive health, and I tried, actually, it was funny, those two that attended, Sarah had this saying, and she always talks about trimming the fat, and we trimmed the fat out of this webinar so bad, and
it was still fat.
It was still fat, and it was like we spoke for literally 40 minutes each. But one of the slides I was speaking about, I had originally, it was probably like 4 slides, but I whittled it down to 1 slide for women, reproductive health, and I was actually pretty surprised that it could be so encompassing. But it was looking at symptomology, and I really tried hard to make this symptom only a thyroid thing, or this symptom only, a low hormone thing, and there was just so much crossover, and that was I think that was a really impactful slide for, I know, myself, because I was like, wow, like this is another case in point of why it is really important to look at the entire person and look at, to your point, their history, look at their present. Again, do the follow-ups and ask those questions.
Yeah, because as we said, that thyroid plays a role in metabolism, which encompasses all the physiological reactions in the body. Now, that, like, to your point, does that mean the thyroid is the quote root cause of whatever is going on? Probably we definitely cannot say that, because again, it's that chicken or the egg situation where like I was going into that with my slides on digestive health or liver function, and you like with showing that kind of chain of command with starting at that brain kind of level. Well, what if someone had a TBI or was born with a growth hormone deficiency, like our recent mentorship call, we were diving into all that. So there is nuance, and understanding that there is nuance, even if you don't understand the nuance, is a must. If I'm going to say, if you're a woman and listening to this, and this is why we cannot ask ChatGPT for medical advice or blood work, like whatever, because guess what he likes or she likes to do?
Totally.
Yes. Like, like Mary, like, you're correct, like blah 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 blah, like it fits that narrative, right? Whatever you feed it, it's going to fit, or it's not going to really step back and understand that nuance because it doesn't have it. So somebody that understands the human, someone that can be that bird's eye picture or bird's eye view, I do feel is really important to also like kind of help like kind of call out and maybe any potential biases.
Yeah, for sure.
Or generic, advice.
Yeah, exactly. Something that we proposed in a recent newsletter, which I'm going to plug our newsletters right now, guys. Like, they have been like just fire, just like absolute fire. If you missed the last newsletter, it was for Mother's Day. Sarah wrote it. I trying not to get misty-eyed right now because I'm definitely in my feels as of lately. But we do have a place on our website where our newsletters there's a home for them now, because honestly, they were too effing good to just be lost in people's emails. But I highly suggest you go and, check that newsletter out. But anyway, in that newsletter and in the one previously, we talked about potentially rehosting the thyroid webinar. And the feedback that we got was, honestly, people, even today, I don't know if you saw, but someone actually reached out today saying, yes, I would, I really want that. So it's something that if you did miss it, it is something that we are highly considering doing again. We want to do it again. Obviously, people want to hear it again. So if you did miss it and you want to be present, I highly suggest you ensure that you're following along in our news. You are following us on social media, because I am gonna say 99.9% we're gonna do this guy again, because it definitely fired us up. And as Sarah said earlier, at the very end, hearing two, a retired nurse and then somebody who's actively working in a clinical setting and working with transplant patients, essentially hearing them speak up and being so positively blown away by the information that we provided, and truthfully the tone that we provided it in, it honestly just got us really emotional. And we absolutely know that more people, we want you in the room. We want you to hear this conversation. We want you to be part of the conversations at the end, where we are all supporting each other, where we're opening, the dialogue, because that is how we create positive change.
100%. And there's no silly questions except for the one that you didn't ask, and then maybe make a silly mistake or have silly thoughts that are overhauling your brain because you didn't, talk it out with another human. So that's what I'll always say to that. And you always do such a good job of saying that, hey, like, what, you are in the right room. If you are, whether you're a practitioner or a coach or a female like you, or a man, whoever you are in the right room, because we all care about moving forward together. And that's, ultimately what it's all about. And being evidence led, it is so important to us. And like seeing that person, at the center of that evidence, based framework is where I always, come at things, and you as well, because it's not just the research. It's not just, what we see, to work it in, practice. It's also who are we working with, and what tools, what interventions are going to be, most supportive for, you as an individual. And I won't keep blabbing too long, but this work, like thyroid, was what really got me into the functional health space. I don't know about you, like kind of if you had like a moment, for your, own thyroid, journey that, really kind of ticked you off on learning more about it. But for me, like that was like, wow, like understanding how my history with birth control, eating disorders, like all of that, like contest preps, like how that influenced my, my thyroid gland, and also being misguided by coaches, I think with good intention, but just kind of like spitting out words, that didn't make sense when I went to go and look into it myself, or just saying like, just take selenium, and like just it being so surface level, which, again, like they didn't have the education either, but it made me want the education for myself and to share it with other people.
Yeah, I think for me with thyroid specifically, there's kind of three instances that I can think of that got me fiery. Like one for myself is when after I had my first ovary removed, that's probably about 6 to 9 months later is where I started seeing like changes and feeling changes, and that's when the thyroid conversation actually came to light for myself. Another one was probably one of the first times that I saw an extreme Hashimoto's case, that nobody had ever run the antibodies before, and that's something that you and I are pretty hell-bent on, at least initially, when we talk about getting like initial labs and looking at the full picture. It kind of broke my heart to be the one to say, hey, I don't know how long this has been going on, but I think that this is the time where we need to have a bigger dialogue here. It just didn't sit well with me, and it really bothered me because the confusion on her face, the frustration, even though it wasn't something I caused, to be the one to say, hey, like this is very concerning because no one had ever run a full thyroid panel except a TSH on her, that really, really bothered me. And then I would say the third thing that has always gotten under my skin, and it's exactly what you just spoke about, is parroting protocols. That's never sat well with me when we parrot one-liners even. So for example, if you hear the blocking thing, T3 blocks this and that means this, and so you need to give that type of repertoire or language. Just I'm the ride or die, but I have some questions, like I will absolutely show up for my girls. Like, I will have a shovel behind my back, but I will also be like, so you want to give me a little details here? Like, how did the body get here? What, I mean, I just need something. I have some questions, but when someone just says, if this is high, give this, that just doesn't sit well with me, and it never has.
Nope. And I'm not gonna go on a soapbox about it, but it's not an algorithm. But algorithms sell, right? Like, that's an easy, like, buy my ebook situation, right? Or whatever the kids are selling nowadays. But yeah, I'm excited for I'm excited for the next one. Stay tuned on that date, but also, if you guys have, so we did it at 6 p.m. on a Wednesday Eastern time. If anybody has, like, we're definitely kind of taking, like, kind of some feedback on, like, ooh, like, my lunch break is a great time, or, 6 o'clock, like, my brain's fried, and, I'm taking the kids to soccer practice. So, like, just let us know, kind of maybe sometimes, especially if this is a topic that you're interested in, again, whether you're a coach and want to have, some more tools or better understand that nuance, or want to understand and, advocate for yourself, wherever you are kind of on that spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Sarah, do you want to wrap this up? I think this was a really good spot, and we have some pretty cool stuff that you just definitely introduced me to that I am going to be putting in my shopping cart.
Yeah, so speaking of evidence-led, sponsored by Legion, you can use code FORD. And Mare and I are such bad influences on each other. She texted me 2 weeks ago, sports bra on sale, 60% off, you have to get it. And I have sports bras, like, falling out of my drawer. Like, I don't
$9. Like, these are normally 25, guys. These are normally $25.
But we only recommend quality to each other. And that is something we do stand by if we are going to touch a friend's wallet. So with that, I did tell her that Legion just came out with a collagen supplement, which collagen is not a replacement for protein. It's not a complete protein, right? So hear that, ladies. But if you do look for a collagen, I do always recommend looking for one with vitamin C in it to really enhance absorption. So previously, there's only been 2 brands that I'll recommend to clients when we're looking to add in some collagen. But Legion just came out with chocolate, vanilla, and unflavored collagen peptides with vitamin C added to it, so that really enhances that absorption. So you can use code FORGE, support the show. Yeah, and then the bra was Grace Form as well, if you are in the market for an Amazon sports bra. And something I was talking to my mom about earlier is CRZ. I feel like they're always doing deals, but that they have a lot of good stuff for the gym girlies, especially going into summer, where I know I'm going to be blowing through, like, nasty sweat pit stains on some of my running shirts and stuff like that.
Oh, CRZ is guys, I was today years old when I just learned I'm like, CRZ, like, what is this?
It's because Mare is new to the US Amazon scene.
Yes, it's been a while. It's been a zillion years since I really did all my ordering, but okay. Definitely. And I do have some good flowy shorts that I can absolutely recommend for runner folks.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Let us know if you listen to this episode. Let us know about thyroid times, but let us know, like, for me, lifting, I need tight, like, compression shorts, non-negotiable. Running, I'm down with the flowy shorts, like a little dolphin, a little, like, liner situation. Like, that makes me, like, have a little pep to my step. So let us know kind of what the fit is. You can say upper body, lower body day, what you're wearing, running day, swimming day is obvious probably, but kickboxing day, whatever we're doing, tell us what the fit is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in as always. And again, I want to thank everybody that's followed Sarah and I through our journey. It was really nice to have some feedback from folks that have attended other webinars in the past, just noting, like, our growth. I'm going to toot our horns here. I'm just in that vibe as of lately to say that I am very proud of us, because it's really nice to be able to stand within your growth and recognize it, and also appreciate that you haven't and you will never actually arrive into, I'm going to say, that fullest potential, But by God, when you can look back and say, I am really proud of what we've done, who we are becoming, I think that's a really great place. And I am just beyond excited for what Sarah and I have planned for the future. And if you guys don't have a ride or die like her, like, she's amazing. So that's my end to this.
We'll see you guys next time on Rewriting the Narrative.